But first, our top story. How's this for an Italian export on the verge of a potentially epic battle with Brussels over its budget? And Rome says not only is it not backing down, but the rest of Europe should be following its lead. Five-star leader Luigi Di Maio says the EU should abandon austerity and start spending more. His comments come as EU finance ministers meet to discuss Rome's escalating budget standoff with Brussels. And speaking to the Financial Times, Di Maio said, "I believe that over the next 10 years, Europe will go in this direction because the United States is moving in this direction. The U.S. economy is growing at 4% with the expansive policies of Trump, which everyone said were wrong." All right, so he is basically saying that he wants to pursue a sort of a Trump-like policy economically because he sees that it's working in the United States. Does he have a point? You mentioned Italy as the story you're watching. Does he have a point?
I think he does, absolutely. Because when you look at the world history, and we're going to talk about that later, and when you look at world economics, there are ebbs and flows of ideas. And what we have now is this massive debate going on between one group of people who believe that large institutions, the global institutions, as controlling economics and politics is the way forward. And back in vogue again after many, many years are those who are saying it should be the nation states that determines their own budgets and way forward. And of course, you've got all these elections going across the globe where people are winning. The latest is in Brazil. You saw what happened in the United States. And they're pursuing economic models that are closer to the nation state, not the globalist ideas. And I think that's where this great political ideal battle is going forward.
I mean, the EU has been resistant to this idea for a very long time. So if Italy does have a point, could the EU have been wrong in pursuing the austerity policy that they've been doing?
I don't think so. I mean, it's easy to say coming from the UK because, yes, you can do that because you have your own currency. But if you sign up to a common currency, you sign up to common rules. That's what the Italians have done. They don't want to abandon the euro, so they're still bound to the rules surrounding the euro. And they have flexibility. Italy has actually benefited from this flexibility to the max compared to other member states.
Are the rules perhaps too strict and needs more flexibility?
They might be too complicated because, what started as a very basic rule about the debt and the deficit has become very complicated in order to allow this flexibility. And member states like France and Italy were actually those who demanded that flexibility, hence that complexity. But the main thing is, let's take it a step back. I mean, the debt was a problem in Italy way before the crisis. Productivity was an issue in Italy way before the crisis. That has nothing to do with the large, budget of the government. That has to do with structural reforms, improving productivity. And I think Europe should help Italy reform, but not basically say, OK, let's make the debt rise and give next generations a burden that they can't shoulder.
But Esther's raising an incredibly important point here about the rules started off very simply. And of course, and the membership of the European Union was fine. And one of the reasons that we said in Brexit to leave is because of the complications of the European Union regulatory system that was put in place, the economic system and the political system. And of course, when people join, yes, they have to compare those rules. But what we're looking at, why there is this great political clash, is that, of course, large organisations like the European Union or the United Nations can't move quickly enough. They're not flexible enough. And that is why the Italians are saying perhaps the rules are not working for them.
So let's look at Italy, OK? If you're an Italian or if you're looking at the Italian economy, which has not grown essentially for the last 20 years, you would think, you know what, let's give these guys a go. Let's whatever the government, whatever the coalition government want to do, you know what, it can't be any worse for many people. Youth unemployment in Naples stands at 60%. It couldn't be any worse. But this comes back to your point. And this is why the comparison with the United States in some ways is wrong. It's because Italy's problems are not about tax and spend, about pumping money, and they are much deeper. They're structural problems. The Italian economy is not like the US economy.
Absolutely.
And the problem with the rules is, so Italy breaks the rules. It'll get fined. In the grand scheme of things, that's not going to matter to the Italian government.
No,
what matters is the bond markets. And what matters is that increasingly people are losing confidence in Italy because they do not believe that Italy will ever reach these levels of growth until it structurally changes. So, yeah, you can cut taxes, you can raise welfare, but until Italy's economy structurally changes, it'll have a short-term effect,
do
but
you
not a
think that their
long-term
message,
one.
because they seem to be confident that what they're bringing to the table is going to fix Europe, save Europe. So do you think that message, you're shaking your head already, so do you think their message has any traction beyond Italy?
You know, a lot of people, when they hear bond market, they'll think, oh, that's not about me, but it will actually impact on ordinary Italians, because what it means, I mean, we are both parents of young children, right? If I was a mother in Italy, I would be so angry that my country would be spending more on financing its debt than on education. And this is what happens if you let this debt increase. So in the long run, neither Europe nor Italian citizens will actually benefit.
But then you can also understand why Italians also feel that for the last 20 years,
in the short run,
they've had lots of different forms of governments from left and right. Nothing has changed. Isn't this worth at least a go?
And that's essentially where we're getting across the globe. And that is why you're getting these changes from Brazil to America to what's happening in Poland and Hungary.
Essentially a clash of two